So we'll start off with roll call, please.
All right, I'll be doing roll call tonight. Sherry's out of the office. Chair Rendon.
Great. Oh, here, sorry. Oops, Rusty.
No worries. Vice Chair White.
Here.
All right. Committee Member Foldenauer.
Here.
Committee Member Olson.
Here.
Committee Member Ray Dupree. Not here right now. Committee Member Schiller.
Here.
Committee Member Spink. Not here yet. All right, so we have a quorum.
All right, thank you, Maz. And so the next item is to review the agenda. You got this via email. Hopefully you had a chance to look at it. Any questions, changes? Seeing none, then we'll move forward and I guess just accept the agenda as is. Next item is the meeting notes that were emailed out, and hopefully you had a chance to review them. Are there any edits that need to be made to the notes? All right, seeing none, and I think this is just, we just basically acknowledge that we've accepted them. There's no vote. All right, well, thank you, everybody. Then moving on to public forums. This is an opportunity for anybody in the public. If there's an item you would like to speak to that's not on the agenda, this is your opportunity to do so. So I'll turn it to Maz to see if there's anybody external as well.
We have one attendee. I don't know who this person is, Paul Gator.
No, don't recognize that name at all.
But no hands raised. But Paul, if you would like to, just raise your hand. But no other attendees at the moment. Okay, great. Thank you, Maz. And welcome, Paul. All right, then moving on to our agenda items. So the first one up, the Rousseau Francais Highway 1 Improvement Project Overview. Thank you, Ms. Chair Rendon. I just wanted to do a quick introduction. Our Associate Civil Engineer, Denise Hutton, is here, and she will be leading this PowerPoint. So Denise has been with us for, gosh, over 5 years now. One of the longest serving engineers in the engineering division, has a year on me as far as experience with the city. And she's been working on a lot of our utility projects. The Ocean Colony Pump Station project was her major work. So happy to have her helping out with some of the transportation related stuff. Thank you, Denise, and it's all yours.
Thank you, Moz. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. Moz asked me to talk today about two of the projects that the city's proposing. Yes.
Hey, Denise, before you jump in, you're not on presentation view if that's what you're trying to do.
I am hoping that I am sharing a screen.
You're sharing the desktop.
And are you seeing the Active Transportation Program PowerPoint?
We're seeing that, and then, but also the notes and your desktop background.
Okay. So then I am not sure how to share it otherwise.
If you open that back up in the lower right-hand corner, there might be a little button that you can hit, open up your presentation again. And somewhere down...
The presenter.
Oh, it is? Huh.
Try this one, this little button down here.
Here.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's a little different.
No, that's a presenter mode though.
If you right click, you can change that.
Presenter view.
So while Jonathan, if you can help Denise with that, while we're getting the tech working, I will just talk a little bit about this. So we have, originally we were coming to talk about the Rousseau Francais Highway 1 Improvements Project, and we are still doing that, but in the context of a grant opportunity. the Active Transportation Program Cycle 6. And so we actually have 2 projects that we'd like to highlight tonight. And
Thank you.
that's what Denise will be going through. Take it away, Denise.
Okay. So now I guess you're seeing my screen, the big screen that just shows the first slide. Great. Thank you, Moz. We'll start again. So Moz asked me to talk about 2 projects that the city's proposing. Some of you might be familiar with these projects or portions of these projects. They're 2 projects that are proposed class 1 multi-use trails along the east side of Highway 1. The projects are called the Rousseau-Francais Highway 1 Improvement Project, and the other one is the East Side Parallel Trail South. The cities, we're currently working on applying for grants to fund these 2 projects through the Active Transportation Program Grant Cycle 6. So the Active Transportation Program Grant Cycle 6, the Active Transportation Program was created in 2013 by Senate legislation, Senate Bill 99. The objective of the program is to encourage active modes of transportation such as biking and walking. It's a well-funded program. It was well received. And in fact, in 2017, Senate Bill 1 added another $100 million a year to the programming capacity. This year, the Transportation Commission anticipates even additional programming capacity. They don't know how much yet, but they anticipate getting more funding through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. So this is a good year to apply for grants. The ATP cycle currently has $650 million for programming. But because it's a statewide program, the grants are highly competitive. And again, the objective of the ATP is to encourage active modes of transportation, such as biking and walking, in lieu of motorized transportation. So towards that goal, the grant program has goals of increasing the proportion of trips accomplished by biking and walking, increasing the safety and mobility of our non-motorized users, and advancing greenhouse gas reduction goals, advancing public health. Because it's such a highly funded program, the grants can be very large, over $10 million. And in that regard, the Transportation Commission sort of packages this as the potential to provide a transformative benefit to the community or the region that uses these funds. So because the program goals are so broad, this grant program has 5 types of grant applications. There's an infrastructure application, which is, the hard improvements that you see on the ground. There's a non-infrastructure application, which is education and encouraging walking and biking and health programs. There's an application for a combination of infrastructure, non-infrastructure programs. There's a planning application and a quick build application, which are smaller projects. But a broad range of supported projects and quite a few grant application types. The city has identified a couple of projects that we think qualify for the goals of the ATP grant application. And these 2 projects are, as I said earlier, an infrastructure application for Rousseau-Francais Highway 1 intersection improvements, and a planning application for a project that we call the East Side Parallel Trail South. So we're going to look first at the Rousseau Francais Highway 1 intersection improvement project. This is a class 1 multi-use trail project on the east side of Highway 1 in the north portion of the city. And you may be familiar with this little map I've put up here. This is the existing conditions along Highway 1, north of Main Street. You can see Main Street here. This is Highway 1, Spindrift, going up to the city boundary, Marauder Road. This blue section we know is already built. It's already a class 1 multi-use trail. It goes from Rousseau Francais up to Roosevelt. It's in place. Not sure the year we installed that, but that was installed through a grant. I think that was a TDA grant that installed this section. This green section down here is a class 1 multi-use trail that is being constructed. I think we're starting this later this summer, if that's correct, Moz.
It's going to be next year, unfortunately. We have some utility relocations, but yeah, that's the Highway 1 North project that's been in the process for a little while now.
So starting next summer, so this will be a class 1 multi-use trail from Main Street to Spindrift. We've got this portion up here, which goes from Roosevelt to the city limit. We received grant funding for that. I think that was might have been a Measure A grant. And it is currently in the environmental phase. So we do hope to have that lined up for construction in the next, the next coming fiscal years. And then this portion up here is proposed multi-use class 1 trail funded through the county. This is unincorporated territory. So I'm not exactly sure the construction date on that, Moz. Do you know?
Actually, that one's going to be starting construction in the next month. They're really close. They have a contractor already on board, and they'll be starting construction very soon.
Well, that's great news. So we're starting to get a very nice contiguous class 1 multi-use trail along the east side of our Highway 1, with the exception of this gap right here. And so we have, in the past, we've called this segment 2 of our program to provide multi-use trail continuous along Highway 1. So this portion is a little over a quarter of a mile long. It's maybe almost a half a mile long. And we are proposing a multi-use trail as a part of this project. And at the intersection of Rousseau Francais and Highway 1, let's look at the existing conditions there. So at the intersection of Highway 1 and Rousseau Francais, we have a non-standard, Caltrans non-standard intersection. It's very narrow. There are only 3 lanes. We get a lot of traffic congestion through here. We have decided to add some intersection improvements to our grant application that will provide a continuous class 1 multi-use trail through this intersection. So a part of the grant is we'll be looking at environmental review, permitting, design of the trail and the intersection, as well as construction funding. This is over $10 million project. And a part of the design will be looking at several alternatives for this Rousseau Francais intersection. I'm a little ahead here. So the trail along this segment 2 between Spindrift and Rousseau Francais, it'll be the MultiUse Trail. I'm sure you've seen these diagrams before where there's separation between the Highway 1 and our trail. It kind of, there's a little bit of a downslope there on the east side. So we'll have some drainage features. Might have a retaining wall. We'll be crossing over some utilities in that area. So this is some of the typical cross sections that we might see through there until we make our way up to the intersection. So like I said, the intersection, they'll probably have several design alternatives, at least 3 intersection design alternatives. And we think that one of those design alternatives might be a roundabout option. So this is what a roundabout option might look like. It's a circular pathway. When you're coming into the intersection, you yield to people who are vehicles who are already in the intersection. Typically, the vehicles will slow down as they go through these intersections. Reduces the possibility of any head-on collisions because everyone's sort of going the same direction. There's no left turn movements in a roundabout. So this is one of the options that might be considered through this grant application at this location. Maz, is there anything else you'd like to say about your thoughts about a roundabout? That location.
Yeah, I guess the only other little bit I would like to add is, we've looked at these different types of alternatives at other intersections as well, and the reason why we think this one makes the most sense, that there's the potential for it, is because of the separation with the other signals. So I think. I think there's still a lot to be done. Obviously, this is a Caltrans facility, so we'll go through that review process. They do require analysis review of different alternatives. So ultimately, we'll see what ends up. But we do think that this is a prime location to try this alternative out.
Yeah, this intersection isn't synchronized with the other lighting signalization in the rest of south of this intersection. And so, because it's an on-demand intersection, the light turns on demand when the pedestrian presses the button, or when you have somebody queued up from the subdivision. So we think that this could be a design that might be seriously considered. It might alleviate some congestion problems, maybe reduce some greenhouse gases, because you won't have so many people queued up in line. So we'll see how those alternatives pan out. The other project that we are applying for a grant is what we call the East Side Parallel Trail South. And it is a Class 1 multi-use trail from Higgins Canyon Road all the way to Moon Ridge. So we are likely going to package this as a planning application rather than an infrastructure application. There's probably going to be, quite a bit of coordination with the county. Having a project, this could be a county city project because Moon Ridge is outside of the city limits. So we've packaged this as a planning application. It would include environmental permitting, design, even right-of-way acquisition. And the planning application would, they would develop a sort of active transportation plan for the Moon Ridge folks making their way up to their jobs in the downtown area and beyond. So these are the two projects that we're thinking about that we're applying for grants, and just wondered if, Moz, if you have anything to add or if there are any questions.
Yeah, so thank you, Denise. Appreciate the presentation. So for the most part, we wanted to provide the background on these projects and the timeline. These applications are pretty robust. They require a lot of in-depth analysis and review, especially on the need and the demographic of the population we're trying to serve. So we're going to work through that. The one thing we would like to ask is if the BPAC is in general agreement with these projects, that we would love to draft a letter of support and have the chair sign on behalf of the BPAC if you guys are on board with them. And obviously any questions you may have, we're happy to answer. And we do have we also do have a comment from the public so when we get to that point.
Yeah, Maj, you mentioned the schedule. I didn't include that. So these applications are due June 15th, but it's a really quick turnaround. We would know by December if we were chosen by the statewide Transportation Commission. If we are rejected from the statewide choice, then our application automatically goes to the municipal Transportation Commission. We get a second chance at it. We get 2 shots at this one. So we would know if we got the state grant in December. If we didn't get that, we would know in February, I think it is, if we get the local funding for the project. So we'll know right away how our applications went through. Sometimes you have to wait a year before you know how your application went.
So we're applying for both.
Yes. There's no limit. We could apply for multiple projects.
Mm-hmm.
The only limiting factor is staffing.
Yeah. Thank you, Moz.
I mean, I think both of them are, we have to have them both eventually, right? We have to connect the East Side Trail. So that's, the county's already there, so we have to do that one. And I've been wanting the Moon Ridge connection for so long. This would be so great for our students. Cunha students could literally take that trail right to school. It would be absolutely awesome. And I like the fact that it's going also back into Moon Ridge, not just a Highway 1 trail. So love it.
Thank you, Carlene. I see that Aaron has his hand up.
Yeah, I would agree with that. One question I have is in regards to the applications. How are the applications stacked or scored? Is there like certain components that you need to hit? Because I know, just thinking, in my work when we're applying for public sector work, there's always like an equity component, things like that. So I'm just curious how you feel our proposals stack against everyone else's who's applying.
So the ATP has a great scoring rubric. They have very clear categories of scoring, and they even say, you get 0 to 2 points if your demographics are this. You get 2 to 8 points if you've done that. You get the full 10 points if you do all of this and your demographics, coincide with what, disadvantaged community or that kind of thing. So there's a really clear scoring rubric for this grant. The disadvantaged community is a big portion. The Moonridge community is a big portion of the grant. They really want to have quantitative evidence that we're sharing the benefit to the disadvantaged community. We have not had great luck with the ATP grants in the past. And our staff has gone to training seminars, and Moz, I think, met with one of the administrators of the ATP grant to get a sense of how we can improve our applications. And we're really super focused on packaging these very well, devoting some staff time to crossing all the T's on these ATP grants.
Thanks, Denise. If I may add, through the chair, we also, so there's definitely a big equity component, as Denise mentioned. The disadvantaged community, they use the CalEnviroscreen software, basically census data on income levels. So the San Mateo County as a whole does not score very well. So the last ATP cycle, I think there was not a single San Mateo County project that got the state funding. And that's why there's that regional pot, which is the MTC pot, which is the competing of the 9 Bay Area counties. And within those 9 Bay Area counties, there is a much better opportunity for us to get some of that funding. Now, when we talk to the state ATP staff members, the ones that put the call out and are working at coordinating the review process, they did mention that they think our project, especially segment 2 and this south piece, would score really well. And so that's part of it, even though the project isn't directly in, because that's what it is. It's whether the project is directly in that community that has that equity disparity. But obviously for us, we can see there's the link, there's a connection of where those residences are and where their schools are and where the jobs are. And so that's the narrative that we are going to work on significantly. Outside of that, there's a lot of other, there's other factors that Denise mentioned. Greenhouse gas emission reduction is pretty high up there with a number of other, safety components, which we checked the box on a lot of those. And so getting that feedback from the state was really helpful to know that, we can utilize and actually call out a disadvantaged community, even though we don't meet the definition of it in that CalEnviroscreen check that they use.
Thanks for that clarification. Other questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, I concur with comments that have been made. I think both projects are just spot on in terms of what our community needs. So, Maz, you asked the question if the committee would be willing to provide a letter. I put that question back to the committee. Any objections to us submitting a letter of support for both these projects? All right. Seeing none, do you need like an official vote, or we're just?
Well, no, I don't think we need an official vote, but we did have a public speaker.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you, Paul. You're waiting. Apologies.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, good. Thanks for letting me into the conversation, and I appreciate a bit of time. I don't think what I'm going to say is going to make any difference to what you're going to do, and I strongly support both of these projects. I remember talking about them conceptually in the old version of the initial version of the BPAC, and so it's good to see some progress. So I live in Frenchman's Creek, and the current light that's there was put in, I think, about 20 years ago, because there were 2 fatalities in fairly quick succession from people trying to cross Highway 1 at Rousseau Francais, and that met the criteria, I think, as a Caltrans criteria to put a light in. And it has been literally a lifesaver for people who live in Frenchman's Creek, and it's used a lot by me and all the other residents to get across to Sweetwood onto the coastal trail. So that's the preamble to say, in whatever design options come forward out of this process, if we get that far, really, really going to have to make sure that safe crossing for pedestrians is part of that project. If that's not there, then the residents of Frenchman's Creek will be revolting. And personally, I like roundabouts. I'm British. I'm kind of used to driving around roundabouts, even though they're in the wrong direction here. And I think it sounds like a good way of perhaps alleviating some of the congestion that does happen when those lights are slowing down traffic coming all the way down from El Granada. Could be a hard sell in the future, but I think it's an interesting option to explore. But importantly for me, is making sure that there's a safe pedestrian crossing there. A technical question is, what are you thinking from an engineering point of view about how to get across the creek across Frenchman's Creek with the proposed trail? Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Paul. Denise, do you want to take a stab at it? You're muted. You're not muted, but your sound's not coming through for some reason.
Is that better?
There we go.
That's a good question, Paul. That's a pretty, big gap from top of bank to top of bank on the east side there. I'm not exactly sure what, some of the alternatives might be, if we're going to have to, cantilever off of the existing bridge, if we're going to have to, have a pedestrian bridge span that gap. I am not sure.
If I may, thank you, Denise. If I may, so yeah, I think those are basically the two options. I mean, you have that creek that needs to be crossed. The cantilevering off the existing structure probably is not going to happen, only because by touching that structure, you're talking about a retrofit of that vehicular bridge, and generally speaking, that's going to be a lot more costly to retrofit and add this component than to do a separate standalone pedestrian bridge. So most likely we'll be doing a standalone pedestrian bridge. So some embankment work, single span. It's because the distance isn't that great. So that's going to be the likely option. Although, we're going to go through the project description and alternatives analysis with Caltrans as a part of the encroachment permit process. But that's a great question. And if I may add, in regards to the safe crossing for pedestrians, I completely hear the concerns, Paul, and for the rest of the community. That is definitely what we're not trying to do, is take away from the safety of pedestrians and bicyclists. And a lot of in our analysis, again, that's why I want to make sure that we state that it's not. We think that the roundabout is a good option. And could be worked in, but we're not certain that that's going to be the alternative that's selected ultimately. So we'll look at different alternatives as well, but absolutely the bike and pedestrian safety is of utmost importance and is one of the criteria of the grant application we're going after. So, and without going into a lot of details, because we haven't gone to that level of design or even concept level planning yet. So what I would also state is that for some of these crossings, if you want, Denise, if you want to throw on that image of the roundabout, I can kind of talk through that a little bit.
Yeah, Maz, could you explain how, if you do a roundabout, I think Paul's point is valid. If you do a roundabout and there was a button that would press, doesn't that defeat the point of the roundabout? Because the roundabout is to sort of keep traffic moving, and pedestrians were to press a button to get across, how would they get across? I'm in full support of the grant and the project as it relates to the roundabout. I think it's a pretty valid point, because I don't know how you get across one, and then that defeats the whole purpose.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So one of the key...
Can I say something through the chair? Sorry, I joined late.
John.
One thing I think that we're missing out in the conversation is that from the pedestrian perspective is why are people crossing the road? Why, you know, and in part because one, that's the only place that you can connect and head down the Naomi Patridge Trail on the other side. So that's a big piece of the equation. And again, we're trying to link the trail and the path across the bridge across the creek and allow people to go toward the high school, toward downtown. There's going to be a signalized crossing at Terrace, so folks can get there. I realize that there are some issues. You could also going to be able to go to the north, connect in up by the elementary school and cross there. So there becomes a question, and I know it's an inconvenience for folks and everything a bit there, but I think one has to think about this in a bigger context of why are people crossing the road now, you know, and why would they need to do so in the future at that exact location? Although I think that we can make crossing reasonably, you know, safe, you know, reasonably safe, you know, at any and every roundabout. It's a little more challenging, but I do think the broader perspective needs to be that the linkage and the connection that we're making and where we have other crossings across Highway 1 is a factor that we're not really mentioning and talking about too much in this.
Yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, that's definitely part of it. You know, as John mentioned, we are incorporating additional crossings. This is a segment that would be connected on the east side. So as far as the roundabout design and pedestrian crossings, this is why I like this example, because you can see where the crossing is. Can you guys see my marking? Yeah. So yes, Paul's mentioned that the coastal trail is still part of that crossing movement across Russo Francais. So yeah, no, I totally understand that. So from the safety aspect of pedestrian crossing, the key element is that you are not just through. So the difference between a roundabout and traffic circle is you're not just putting the circle elements in an existing intersection. You're modifying the approaches of the lanes. You can see here where this minor road is coming in at an angle, and where the crossing is actually 2 car lengths before they enter the traffic. So what is done is you can have yellow flashing beacons. So it wouldn't be a stop, it would be a yield. And what that does is it provides that notification to a motorist that's coming up that there is a crosser, and there'll be flashing lights that would be a part of that. And then it kind of separates and breaks out from where the vehicle is trying to merge or into the circle or meet with other vehicles in the circle, and it separates it out from that point. And that actually, there's been a lot of studies done that actually shows that it reduces bike ped collisions with vehicles because it is pushed back and separated out. So the driver is not as distracted when they come up to the crossing. And again, this is just one of the concepts that are going to be reviewed and analyzed. And again, the main purpose of it is to look at it from a safety perspective. So if we feel that this option would not be safer, it would not be what we would move forward with.
Any other questions for Maz and staff on either the roundabout or just the projects in general? All right, seeing none. So then I think the committee was comfortable with writing a letter of support, and we'll definitely sign on to that.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, great. Thank you, everyone.
Sorry,
thank you.
Mario, I saw there was a comment in the chat from Paul. I don't know.
Yeah. I thought, so he said, in my opinion, most people are crossing here to get to the woods and coastal trail, not the Naomi Patridge Trail. Yeah, I think Maz kind of addressed some of that. But I'm imagining that this is going to come to us again.
Oh yeah,
at some point, and we'll be able to weigh in once. You know, because this is just one of the alternatives, right? You have to present, as you mentioned, multiple alternatives, and I got to imagine the existing kind of T intersection will be one of them, with kind of updated features.
Correct. I mean, and what this grant opportunity does is provides us the seed money to really start our environmental and alternatives analysis. So that's, yeah, that would be the first step. And absolutely, this would be coming back to BPAC for more information, updates, discussion, public outreach. So this is obviously not the last time anybody's going to see this. And hopefully we get the funding and you'll see it sooner than later.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And then we'll move on to the next item. And that's going to be the Caltrans multi-asset project update. And we'll go back to Moz.
Thank you. So I had a presentation from Caltrans ready to share on the VMS signs that were proposed for the multi-asset project. There was a new meeting in the end of April that Caltrans came back. So this is the multi-asset project that is looking at bike and ped improvements, resurfacing of Highway 1 from Wavecrest to Moss Beach. And it also incorporated 5 of those variable message signs that is also part of a separate Caltrans application that's currently in process. Some folks in the community may have heard about it, but so essentially those variable message signs were related to incident response and emergency response. And there was a lot of community input on that original process. So my original intent was to share the updated information about the details of the VMS, but actually we found out recently that Caltrans has decided to remove that component from their project. So they're still moving forward with the remainder of it. It's going to look at rehabbing the roadway surface. They're still going to be looking at adding Class 2, Class 1 facilities where feasible, pedestrian linkage improvements. We're pushing hard for the one off of just south of 92 and Highway 1 that we went over last time. And so we're going to continue that process. There's nothing new to share. There was the VMS information, but I think at this point it's moot. So that I just wanted to kind of provide that quick update and see if there's any questions or comments on that one.
Any questions from the committee? All right, seeing none. Well, thank you for the update, Moz. And again, I think this will come back to us at some point because I'm curious to see what the bike ped improvements are going to look like once that gets finalized. All right, moving on to the next item is the San Mateo County Marauder Bridge update. Back to you, Moz.
Before we, sorry, through the chair, before we go on, we received a comment from Michelle, who's in the attendees. She thought that AAC met with Caltrans last week on VMS.
I can speak to that. Thank you for that comment, Michelle. So yeah, that the ACC did meet and have a discussion on the variable message signs, but that is part of their traffic operational systems project, the original VMS project. So that one is still moving through the process where they received some comments from the AAC regarding the aesthetic pieces to that sign. That project incorporates one VMS on the northbound side of Highway 1, just south of Miramontes Point Road. And they provided some good comments on trying to reduce the visual blight of the black screen. So it wouldn't be operational unless there's an incident, and then that's when it would be activated. And they're still going through the process to respond back to us on that. So we'll be talking more about that, and I'll update this group as well when that next step is going to be. Ultimately, I think it's going to require CDP, coastal development permit. So the next step would be some sort of a study session, I believe, with the Planning Commission. So we'll keep you guys posted on where we go with that. But as far as the multi-asset project that's looking at the bike ped improvements, those VMS signs, Caltrans acknowledged that it was that they understood the community's concern with VMS and did not want to jeopardize the remaining improvements of that project. So they've decided to separate those two out. So. All right. And so next, I was going to give a brief update on the Marauder Road pedestrian bridge replacement and bank stabilization project. I had the opportunities to sit in on a pre-construction meeting on May 3rd with the county and the contractor and everybody. So the good news is that project, the replacement is there. We're here. We have a contractor with the county. They have a notice to proceed to start on the 23rd of May, and they're looking at a start date of June. They're proposing 120 days of work and looking to wrap up the majority of the work on the beach, especially by October, and looking at finalizing the project and getting the bridge opened up by December, material supply related issues aside. So that is, obviously with the global supply chain still an issue. We're still trying to figure out. I know on some of our city projects, that's one of the considerations we're looking at is what we expect and whether it's available or if it's going to delay projects. So, but right now, tentatively, they're looking at wrapping it up by before Thanksgiving. So really great. It's really great to finally get to the point where that facility is going to be opened back up. I know that was a huge impact to the community overall. The only other piece I want to add is that the Highway 1, so the detour route will stay as is until the end of the project. So the last phase would be removal of those K-rails and putting the Highway 1 corridor back to its original condition with the median and the turn pockets. And then at that point, that'll be after the bridge is opened up to public use. Any questions?
Seeing none from the committee, is there any public comment on this item?
There's public comment, but not on this item.
Okay. All right. Then we've gone through our set agenda items, and I think we move over to staff announcements.
I have a few. So happy to announce we've got quite a number of projects that have gotten to construction phase that I'd like to share. No in particular order, the John L. Carter Park Improvements Project was awarded a couple of months ago, and we have been working with the contractor. We had a pre-construction meeting today, I'd like to mention, and it went relatively well. And we are currently anticipating a groundbreaking ceremony on May 19th at, I believe, is it 11 a.m., Jonathan? So May 19th at 11 a.m. at Carter Park. We've been inviting our county representatives, our state representatives, Mark Berman specifically for helping us with the grant funding for this project. And it's also open to the public. So we will be making additional announcements. We will formally invite the BPAC and other city committees and commissions. So if you're available, please, we would love to see you out there. And as far as the project is concerned, we're looking at, again, after the groundbreaking to start the construction and hopefully be completed by early 2023. The next project we'll want to highlight is the Corporation Yard Improvements Project. We have been going through a coastal development permit for our Corporation Yard at the end of Stone Pine. We received that CDP from the Planning Commission, and we had advertised the phase 1, which is the site security of the Corporation Yard, paving the roads, and providing laydown area that is impervious. As well as the new trash enclosure and relocation of the trash enclosure, as well as special species protections on that site. So that project's, the bid is opening on May 10th, and we will look to award soon afterwards, and that will be a quick turnaround project. It will likely coincide with the Carter Park, and but it will be wrapped up by late summer. The next project is the Kelly Avenue Crosswalks project. This is the project. It used to be known as the Kelly Avenue Intersection Project. There was a little bit of confusion with the location of that, so we've retitled it, but it's the intersections at Pilarcitos and Kelly, as well as Alsace, Lorraine and Kelly. That's the project that you guys, I believe, looked at in March. So we have that out to bid. We are also opening that up on May 10th, and we're looking to jump into construction in the summertime and get it completed and out of there before school opens up in August. That one, we've heard that there may be a material delay on the push buttons and the rapid flashing beacons. So that's, getting those submittals and approved and seeing what the lead times are critical. So we'll work on that pretty quickly and see what we can do. But yeah, it's a lot of folks in a lot of industries are feeling those impacts. The next project I wanted to highlight is the Main Street Traffic Safety Project. This is the project that is looking at the incorporation of Class 3 and Class 2 lanes from North Main Street at Highway 1 through the 92 intersection and kind of building out the bike network that was proposed in the master plan and connecting down to the library through Johnston and Correas. So that project unfortunately was delayed. We were hoping to start construction in this spring, but as folks have noticed, PG&E has been doing a lot of work. So obviously with that ground disturbance, we went ahead and delayed our project in order to get a good finished product after after the utilities work is done and out of the vicinity. So right now we're looking at advertising in June, just before the PG&E project wraps up. And again, it's a pretty straightforward project. So we're looking at constructing it towards the end of the summer and having it completed before sometime in mid-September. Those are all tentative dates, but we will definitely keep you posted. Another announcement, we've been a lot of things happening and moving on the capital improvement program side. So just wanted to make the quick announcement that the City Council approved our one-year capital improvement project list that that this committee reviewed at the last meeting. There were not many changes, no significant changes anyways to what this committee saw, especially in the areas of the bike, pedestrian, and parks. So happy to announce that they approved that on May 3rd, and we will be taking that to the Planning Commission for a general plan consistency finding on May 24th. If anybody's interested to attend, that meeting and agenda will be posted in a couple of weeks. And I think with that, I think that was my last announcement.
That was a lot of good information, Maz. Thank you. Any questions for Maz on what he just presented?
Or anything else?
Maz, just a quick question. So on the Carter Park, you might have said it, or I probably missed it. What time on the 19th?
11 a.m.
11 a.m. Okay, great. Thank you.
And yeah, we have our communications team is working on an announcement, and so you guys will get a formal invitation as well from the city. So be on the lookout in your email.
Okay. All right. Anything from the committee? All right. Seeing none, we are going to wrap up, I think, in record time. Thank you all for easing me back in slowly. I like it. So with that, we will move on to adjournment. Our next meeting is scheduled for, I have it on my calendar, July 7th. Is that correct, Maz?
That's what we have right now.
Okay.
If I'm just curious if there's any I know it's close to the 4th of July. So is there any concerns with that date? You don't have to make any, you don't have to talk about it now, but just shoot us an email and let us know. Given the holiday, we may shift it to a special meeting, but right now we will keep it for that time.
Okay, that's good to know. All right, everyone. Thank you much for your attention and your work and your comments. Always appreciated. Thank you, staff. Lots of great information tonight. And we will see you all on July 7th or at a later date to be determined. So with that, good night, everyone. See you next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.